Welcome, everyone, to the Sangamon Experience. My name is Anne Moseley. I am the Director of Engagement and Curator for the Sangamon Experience at the University of Illinois at Springfield. And this month, I've been presenting a number of programs for Women's History Month. And what we've been trying to do for the past 2 years is to highlight community trailblazers within our communities that showcase the passion that we have for the communities here in Central Illinois, but also the rich history that we have in each section of the Sangamon Valley area. And to catch everyone up, I want to do a brief introduction for those of you who are new to our program about the Sangamon Experience. So the Sangamon Experience is a unique museum that's on the campus of the University of Illinois at Springfield. And it highlights the history and diversity of the Central Illinois area. A lot of times when we discover the past and we look to the past here in Central Illinois, we focus quite a bit on the great men and women who have made their mark here. But the real history is the story that we tell as community members, but also just everyday people living their lives. And that is the story that we like to tell at the Sangamon Experience. It's also a lab space where we discover new and unique ways to showcase the story of Central Illinois. And also recognizing that Sangamon County is not the only county here in the heartland. We also have a few others that surround us that have some rich history to tell. Now, today we will be highlighting a very special woman who dedicated her life to her community, and she had an impact on specifically the young people in her town and the county, and overall, if you ran into her at the state fair, she had an impact on you as well. Her name is Geraldine Maguire, and we will be talking about her and the neighborhood boys and girls from Scott County, Illinois. Later on in the talk, we will have some extra special guests joining us to tell us some of the unique experiences they had with Geraldine and the impact she had on their lives and the community that surrounded her. To get us started, though, to kind of get a better understanding of who Geraldine is, I would like to introduce you to her. So to get us started, we are going to go way back in time to discover when Geraldine came and blessed us with her presence. Now, Geraldine Maguire was born August 21st, 1924. She's the daughter of Olin and Mildred Clark. And on April 9th, 1944, she ended up marrying Leah Hembrow, who sadly passed away in 1990. But Geraldine had a community that surrounded her, a family that kept her busy, and farm animals that kept her on her toes. And for many years, Geraldine would not only serve her community, but she would also develop roots within Scott County. You see, she graduated from Winchester High School and later worked as a secretary and bus driver. Now, throughout her life, you will see her in a number of yearbooks. And what I find so unique about these yearbooks is the fact she's always smiling. She's always engaging with the people around her. And a lot of times you will see students up at the desk talking to her. And they were able to capture her essence in a lot of these pictures. But in addition to that, a lot of them were candid. She didn't really stand for a lot of the pictures. They were taken just around her. Now, while she was in high school and before she was even a secretary and bus driver, she was a part of the 4-H group within her community, and it was headed by her mother. Now, for the time she served as a 4-H'er herself, she focused on sewing and knitting, and later on, she would become a teacher of these special skills as well. Now, in the midst of being a part of 4-H, she was also a longtime member of the First Baptist Church at Winchester. She constantly volunteered. She was on a number of welcoming committees for church, but also she worked with the after-school programs that were offered at Winchester First Baptist as well. She also served on many county committees, and she tended to put the needs of others before her own. And she was always interested in solving puzzles and spent many hours on jigsaw puzzles with groups of people. But she also enjoyed just being around individuals. She thrived on the energy that surrounded her. Now, in studying the life of Geraldine, she spent a lot of time with 4-Hers. Being with children, being with students, she found kindred spirits there. And in looking at what the 4-H community has brought to her life, she was able to extend it, her enjoyment and her enrichment to the people and the students that would come next. So Geraldine ended up spending 70 plus years dedicating her life to her 4-Hers. The 4-H group that was based out of Scott County and still exists today is the Neighborhood Guys and Gals, who take care of their community by visiting nursing homes, raising funds for different events that were happening, but also taking part in a lot of what makes 4-H very unique. So a brief history of 4-H before we dive in and discover more about not only the impact of Geraldine, but the 4-H organization and the impact it has on communities throughout Central Illinois. We have to gain a better understanding on what is 4-H? What is it actually to our communities and to the students who participate in it? Well, 4-H began in 1902. As an educational program for the nation's rural youth. 4-H began around, the beginning parts were 1900, but parents started by working with their children to improve farm and home practices. And 4-H was based upon the assumption that if new ideas were instilled in the minds of young people, those ideas would in turn convince parents to try innovations. 4-H was also developed because schools were not always meeting the needs and interests of rural youth. The first organized 4-H clubs were small groups covering a single topic, such as corn production and canning tomatoes. The original objectives were to teach improved practices to farmers and homemakers through their children. Then came World War I, and the Food for Victory theme began. Following the war, the Keep the People on the Farm objective was the forefront of people's minds. And again, during World War II, food production was emphasized. Today, 4-H meets the needs and engages young people in a positive youth development experiences. These experiences are based on an idea that young people should be regarded as resources to be developed. In 2002, it marked the centennial of 4-H and a renewed commitment to helping shape youth and communities and looking to the next century. 4-H further develops its programs and continues the motto of making the best better. Now, Geraldine spent her life making the best better through the students that she came across and the community members that she engaged with, and providing a helping hand to those in need. One thing that's also very admiring about Geraldine is the fact that she would jump in. She would roll up her sleeves and she'd get to work. Regardless on what the task was, she gave it her all. She was also very blunt and very forward with you when working on a project or taking an initiative and making sure things were done in an order and done in a way that was the most effective. So when 4-H celebrated its 100-year anniversary, it's no surprise that Geraldine was one of the individuals they reached out to interview. Now, when she was interviewed by the 4-H group here in Illinois, she ended up talking about her experience, but also her experience as a leader of the 4-H club in Scott County. She was a member of the Rural Electronic Cooperative while she was making 4-H a part of her life. She talked about that as a child, she was a member of the club and that she was leading the neighborhood guys and gals. Now, throughout her lifetime commitment to 4-H, she has seen many changes in the organization. She was quoted saying, quote, "I began 4-H in 1934 when my mother was a leader. It was the only time I got to go anywhere except for church on Sunday mornings. It was wonderful. I learned to sew and cook. When I started, there was a girls' club, and you made a slip out of feed sack and baked cookies and things like that. The projects were minimal then, and if you wanted to have livestock, you had to join another club like I did," unquote. Later on, the boys and girls belonged to the same club and now can work on a variety of more projects. And there are more than 8 million youths who participate in 4-H in the United States and 83 countries nationwide, with more than 371,516 members in Illinois alone. There are over 110 projects available in a variety of different areas that cover science, technology, personal leadership, personal development, communications, expressive arts, and environmental education. Now, another woman that was interviewed for the centennial was a woman by the name of Donna Larson, who was a cashier and receptionist for the Illinois Rural Electric Cooperative, who was also involved in 4-H. Larson and Maguire became volunteer leaders at the same time because they wanted to give back what they got out of the program as children. Later on, they would go on to say that children became the centerpiece of the club and helped them grow as individuals. Geraldine later on mentioned in a quote saying, "You become very close to the children. They are part of your life." And you can definitely see this in the individuals that we will be bringing onto the program tonight. Now, later on, she would go on to say, when you see the children work so hard and then earn a blue ribbon, you celebrate with them because you're so happy for them. You feel like you've accomplished something as well. So to lead us in, I'm going to start with some of the individuals that had a impact with Geraldine and also received a few blue ribbons of their own. So as I bring them on board, I'm going to have them tell their story one at a time. And we are going to hear about how Geraldine impacted the community that she lived in, which was Winchester, Illinois, in Scott County, and hear about the lives that she impacted and gain some knowledge about how we can leave our legacy behind within our communities. All right. So I'm going to introduce our guests first, and then we will start with our first speaker. All right. So let me move this out of the way. Okay. We have Sue Gutman, who will be with us first. And then we have another guest who will be joining us a little later. And then we have Leah Hembrow, who will be joining us. And then we have Philip, who will be joining us as well. And then Pam Hembrow with her husband, Larry. All right. So I have everyone's mics muted. Sorry, a little tongue-tied there. But we're going to have a little conversation about Geraldine. Now, most individuals who are tuning in this evening may not know Geraldine, may not know her background or the impact she had on her community, or even just knowing who she was when you walk down the street in Winchester. But we do recognize individuals like her in our communities. But what makes Geraldine so unique is the fact that she had an impact on all of you. And who better to introduce our guests to Geraldine and the amazing work and legacy she's left behind than through the stories of the individuals she interacted with. So the first person I'm going to have speak is Sue. Sue, can you introduce yourself and then introduce us to your story about Geraldine?
Hi, I'm Sue Gutman, and I am a transfer from another county and met Geraldine through my daughter becoming a 4-H'er in this county. I had pushed her towards it, having been 4-H myself. And Geraldine was wide open arms, greeting everybody. So she went all the way through until her final year at turning 19, and she considered Geraldine as a grandma. And that is the way she did for all the kids, because she took them under her wing. And anytime they needed to talk, she was there for them to talk. As far as the kids doing their projects and everything, if you needed help, all you had to do was ask, and she would invite you into the house, and you'd sit down and you'd start working on your project. Truly a lady that was very, very open-armed, warm heart, and loving. Sorry, we really miss her, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of choking up here.
You are perfectly fine, Sue. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you is Geraldine, you helped a lot with projects. What was your daughter's project?
Oh, we did everything from cooking and sewing to rabbits and cats and gardening and child care, and we did Passport for the World and which Geraldine helped, because through our 4-H club, Dawn was an student ambassador that got to go to Australia. And it was Geraldine that pushed her towards it, because she said, you must open up and become a member of the world. So.
Sounds like she had an amazing experience with her.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Sue, so much for sharing that. We are going to move over to Philip. Can you tell us your Geraldine story?
Yeah, I sure can. I have lots of Geraldine stories. She lived right down the road from my parents for probably a half a mile down the road for a number of years. So she was like an emergency blanket. If something happened at the house, we would always just run to her house. And I only had to do that a couple of times. But I mean, just like what everyone's already said, I don't know anybody that could have a bigger impact in a community that, like, 70 years as a 4-H leader, like not even a teacher, has an impact. A teacher might teach for 30 years. She did double that. So like the impact that she had on the community, and like the things that she would do, even for the monthly meetings, like she would rearrange her whole house and move all of her furniture just so we could have our meetings, and just little things like that. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see like a greater leader of youth ever again in Scott County, but I mean, I have a few little stories. There was one time where the Kiwanis asked us, like anytime anybody needed work done, they would always ask Geraldine, and then our group would get stuff done. That's just what she was the greatest leader. She instilled all of these great qualities of character that, we all should aspire to be more like Geraldine. And growing up here in a rural community, that's, especially in the summer times when you're young, there's not a lot to do. Well, if you were in the neighborhood guys and gals 4-H club, Geraldine would find something for you to do, whether that was a different project like Passport to the World, like what Sue was talking about, or, she'd get you into sewing or knitting or, basket weaving. She was just get people, she was inspiring. And I don't know, she meant the world to this community.
Well, Philip, what's the one thing you feel encouraged by from the legacy she's left behind that you want to carry on to the next generation of guys and gals?
I don't know. Like guys have already said everything. You've already hit the nail on the head so many times, but like once it's just her quality of character, like once she took on a task, and even if she had to delegate it to Sue or Pam or a couple of the other leaders that we've had over the years, like she wasn't, even though she was the boss, she wasn't, afraid to delegate to somebody that could do just as worthy of a job and do just as good a job. Like she was all about getting the work done and being a gracious, loving human being while doing that. Like she was just, I think it comes with being a mom and things like that. She was just a great lady.
Well, thank you, Philip, for sharing your story and it sounds like to me, just continuing to care for the youth in your community, just keeping an eye out for them and giving them a place where they feel welcomed. And it sounds like that's something that Geraldine really was able to showcase in her community.
For sure. It didn't matter, like every single week. Like it doesn't matter if we were playing checkers at the nursing home with our adopted grandparents, or watering the flowers or planting the flowers, or, going to the grocery store for June is Dairy Month and handing out pamphlets. Like there's always something going on, and she was always a part of it.
Well, it sounds wonderful. Kate, welcome to the program. Can you tell us your Geraldine story?
I have several Geraldine stories. My biggest one, in the summertime, I was always at her house. I had wanted to learn how to sew. My mom did not know how to sew at all, and Geraldine took me underneath her wing, and she, God bless her heart, took me underneath her wing and showed me how to sew 2 prom dresses. One of them in particular was a sequins dress, and I think up until right before she passed, she told me that she was finding sequences all over her house still from my dress. So, but we would bake cookies at her house. We were, it wasn't just going to her house and you're sewing. You were doing community projects the whole day. So we would sew for the first couple of hours, and then we'd leave and go in town. We go to the church, and the church was having something to do. We were meeting other people for lunch, and she was helping them, doorbell dinners, taking her sister, getting her groceries, anybody that needed anything. And then we'd come back and we finished the project. I mean, that's why my sewing always took all summer long.
Well, I know she knitted a lot of baby blankets. She made quilts, which I don't know many people who make quilts anymore. It's an art form. And she knew how to make Play-Doh. Have any of you been able to play with her Play-Doh at all?
Yeah. Yeah. We got the recipe from her with that.
So it shows that, she can pretty much cultivate any type of task and turn it into something fun.
Yeah, she could.
All right, Leah, can you tell us your Geraldine story?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I kind of lost connection for a moment, but my name is Leah Hembrow, and I grew up in Winchester. And I guess really my story started, I started in the basement. I went to her granddaughter's daycare, and I know that was a foot in the door because every month when they had a meeting, we would sneak up to go have a snack. So that was kind of my foot in the door to meeting Geraldine. And of course, I quickly had to join the club when I became of age in third grade. And my story with Geraldine, the big word for me is that she still comes to mind as grandma. She, like with Dawn and with Katie, she taught me how to sew. I kind of refused to learn how to cook until I got on my own. So I wasn't in cooking, but I did thoroughly enjoy sewing. And another claim to fame that she got to enjoy with me, or I guess I should say that Geraldine would rarely ever say no. And if I had a wild hair or an idea, she usually ran with it with me. And we were part of a project for Scott County, which was llamas. And I know that she was pretty hesitant. That was one livestock animal that she had ever been around, but by golly, we did it all together. And something that I remember tremendously was that red truck. She would pick us all up from school, and we would go get a snack from the gas station and head over to practice for llamas. So overall, she really has taught me a lot of life lessons and things that I still hold dear to me today. In fact, my sewing machine is in that back corner. I still sew and make baby blankets, actually. And something that I just thoroughly enjoyed from her is that she was always one in the community, always a big leader in the community. And she really did have an impact because it instilled in me to want to continue to be involved in 4-H. And I think of her constantly as I now am a leader for Clover Buds here in Champaign County. So she's definitely someone that I think about pretty often.
Sounds like to me that she was able to teach all of you life lessons on ways to be involved instead of being disconnected from the community that surrounds you. Because a lot of times, at least when I was in high school, it was always so exciting to get away and to branch out to somewhere else that wasn't your parents' home. But it sounded like Geraldine really just kind of made home for everybody around her. So it's very, it's inspiring to me to see the impact that she's had on all of you, but also the fact that she has instilled some life lessons into everyone. And you mentioned llamas, so I am going to bring this up now. Pam was able to share this with me. So I was able to find on the Facebook page some of the experiences that all of you were talking about, from time at the nursing home, time to spending with her. I actually have one of your guys' t-shirts that you made in honor of her. It's one of my favorite shirts to wear. Makes me wish that I was a part of the group. But you mentioned llamas, so I wanted to make sure I brought up the llama picture. So thank you, Pam, for that picture. And Pam, I think we're going to turn over to you and have you tell us a bit about Geraldine and what legacy she's left for you. All right.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm the newest addition to the 4-H family. I first knew Geraldine as a family friend, and then, as our daughter Leah stated, she grew up with Geraldine's granddaughter Kelly as her sitter and caregiver, and so we met Geraldine and got involved in 4-H through that. Geraldine is so special just in memories and in the community. I mean, her wealth of knowledge of any topic, whether it be gardening or sewing or cooking or genealogy, she was the go-to person she was a Scott County encyclopedia. I mean, you know, historian. Everybody went to Geraldine if they needed an answer for something. I have attempted to step into part of barely a shoe of hers as a co-leader with Sue and my husband, Larry. And, you know, in that capacity, it's overwhelming to think about everything that she accomplished in her career as a 4-H leader. And just when my daughter was in 4-H, I mean, the different things we did, as Philip mentioned, the doorbell dinners, she would pick up the kids and make sure that they had a way to get there. We did the Christmas baskets with the Kiwanis. We watered the flowers uptown and planted them uptown on the square. And probably she was responsible for that for over 25 years. She lost count. Just numerous things on and on. Kiwanis Christmas baskets, doing things for the nursing home, and it's a mile-long list. And one day I was at her house and she was taking care of a few things. And I said, how many children do you think you impacted in your life as your career as a 4-H leader? And she just grinned. She said, I don't know. And then I was reading one of the articles when she won some state awards for 4-H in 2011. And of course, being the humble person that she is, you know, she wouldn't take any credit for it. It was always the community that supported the club and the parents and everything. But her greatest reward was the children and what they learned and what they accomplished and how they used that in their life moving forward. So that was what Geraldine got out of it. And it is a pleasure to work with the kids. And I wanted to just mention a couple of other things. Like Leah said, she never told a child no. If there was something worthwhile doing, she wanted to do it. She was right there supporting all the children with their projects. She made sure they had the resources that they needed, the time, the transportation, or if she couldn't do it, she found somebody that could to help them to be a success. I also wanted to mention, I guess, just to finish up what I was going to mention about her, to me, she's the epitome of the 4-H pledge, which is I pledge my head to clearer thinking. And she was constantly a wealth of knowledge. She read her Bible daily. So, I mean, she was up on all the news. So she kept her head clear and she knew what she was talking about. Her heart to greater loyalty. She would do anything for anyone. She was the first one on the scene if you needed something. Even at her age of upper 80s and her 90s, she was still taking other folks to doctor's appointments and things like that, and still participating with the 4-H club out at the nursing home to do crafts. So she didn't quit. She didn't stop, but she was loyal to those that she felt needed her help. Then her hands to larger service. Well, we can't even begin to address everything that she did and everyone that she touched with her hands. But you think of community service and you think of Geraldine, they're synonymous. And then her health to better living. I mean, in her 80s, she was so spry and doing things that I just smiled and thought, you're wearing me out just watching you. So what an incredible lady. And I'm just flattered to be a part of that and work real hard with Sue and Larry to try to keep part of the tradition going in Scott County.
Well, thank you so much, Pam. And thinking of Geraldine, you always think of energy because she just never seemed to get tired. She never seemed to kind of wear herself out. And when you did notice that, it was on the very rarest of occasions. She always seemed to be full of life and energy. I've never really seen her tired, but I do imagine that happened quite a bit.
I don't know that she slept much.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I think you're our last one. What stories do you have of Geraldine?
Okay, well, I grew up in the Merritt area, and being a boy, I was in the Bill's Better Best 4-H club. So I didn't get to be with Geraldine as a member, but then later on, in later years, I was around her quite a bit. So that was kind of fun. In high school, I should back up just a teeny bit. She and her husband did host a tractor safety class in school in their house. And the first year, my freshman year, which had been 67, we did the tractor safety in their house, right in their living room, and the old original house. And then the next year, we were down in the basement part of the time and out in the garage part of the time because they were building their new house. So having your house tore up or building is not an excuse not to be a leader or be involved because we were there. And she supplied their refreshments, and we were out in the driveway, we were in the garage, and we were in the basement while they were building their house. So we did tractor safety right on through the whole process. So that was kind of fun. And that's how I actually met Geraldine. And of course, I was friends with her boys, her two sons, Olin and Radine, Daryl. Radine, we knew him as Radine. So that was how I first met her. And that was back in, like I say, 67, 68, 69. So then went a few years, and then I get to be let's see. Oh, yeah, it's about, then we shoot forward to where Leah's in 4-H. So I get to come around and help. One of my favorite memories is when we go to the nursing home and we do crafts, or we'd build the bird feeders, the toilet paper with the peanut butter and roll it in the bird seed and all that. And we'd be in there doing all these working and helping the residents. And the part that always tickled me was Geraldine was older than most of the residents we were helping. And she was there helping them do the crafts and roll the peanut butter and the things. I always just thought that was kind of cute. But there she was helping. Let's see, the peanut butter, that takes care of that. Flipping the page over, lots of times, since I wasn't a member with her, but as a leader and then doing other projects, I would just get to sit down and just to visit with her. So lots of times you'd have to sit at the kitchen table and either eat chocolate chip cookies or fresh cinnamon rolls. I mean, it's a tough job. We had to do it to keep Geraldine happy. So fresh, they were always there, fresh on the table. And that's what I remember, sitting and just visiting. And as others have mentioned, she was a historian. Man, if you had any questions about who did this or who did that, or if you had pictures of old photographs in the newspaper, you say, okay, now who's this? So then she'd go down the lineage and say, okay, this is so-and-so, this is their parents, this is their grandparents, they were neighbors to so-and-so over here. It was just fun to hear all the history. And she went down one time when I was visiting with her with chocolate chip cookies. She went down the road of where she was a 4-Her, where the neighborhood girls started, because they went down the road over there by where Mike and Zachary lives, and down that way when they used to live there. She went down just house by house, who lived there, how many kids was in each house, and the girls all joined that 4-H club, neighborhood girls. And that's how they got started, over just east of Winchester a short bit. So I thought that was quite interesting, and some of that involved some of our relatives, which I didn't even know they lived over there. So it was just kind of fun to see those things. I touched the button. Oh, okay, I'm okay. There in the Model T, where we're riding in a parade. I think she's older than the Model T. I think it's a 24 or 25 Model T, but they both were running pretty good at that point. So just visiting with her, good history. She did one of my favorite stories, and I'll probably wrap up. Well, two short ones. One short one was the red pickup truck you mentioned. A couple of you mentioned too. I can remember when she bought that. I don't remember exactly what year, but somewhere in the 90s. I'll say middle 90s, early 90s. And she was at a point where she needed to get a different vehicle. And she was looking, and family members were all giving suggestions, and friends were all giving suggestions of what she ought to get. But you could just tell she didn't like any of those ideas. And my brother Danny just had me hanging on her one time. He says, well, what do you really want? She goes, I want a pickup truck. I want a red pickup truck. Okay. So then they went to town and they started riding around and they found one. So that's kind of how the red pickup truck came into being. And my gosh, she drove it for years. She loved it. So that was the red pickup truck story. And then the other one is she told one time when she was in 4-H, the fair used to kind of float around and visit different towns like Manchester, Albany, Winchester, because you couldn't haul all your livestock easily from place to place. So it kind of floated for a while, for a few years in the early days. And she said she remembered one time being in 4-H, showing livestock and stuff on the street right there, Cherry Street, right in front of the Methodist Church, and then the yellow brick schoolhouse building across the road. She goes, they had the fair right there on that street, and then Walnut Street, kind of toward the Illinois Rural Electric, right in that area. That's where they set up the fair and had it right there. She remembered being there, showing right there on that street. So I thought, that's kind of cool. I mean, that's going back a ways. So those are my Geraldine stories. You guys have done a super job. I enjoyed listening to you.
I just wanted to add one thing that I think everybody will find applicable here, especially my daughter. As a 4-H mom, when we were working on fair projects in the heat of the moment, trying to get things done, and she'd get frustrated with me and frustrated with herself also. But she'd say, well, why can't I do it this way? And I'd look at her and I said, well, you can do it that way, or you can do it the Geraldine way, the right way.
Yeah, she would let you know where things were or how they could be. I mean, she was very opening, very welcoming, but she made sure you understood the right way to do something.
Well, and you end up finding that the Geraldine way is the only way to do it. So as you were able to tell us quite a bit about her, I wanted to share what she mentioned in the centennial that really struck out to me, that kind of connects with what you said, Pam, as being a mom of a 4-H'er. She ended up stating in this interview that you cannot be a leader without the help of your parents. And it was very interesting to me for her to say that, because she was almost like a parent to everyone else. Her exact quote actually was, "If you don't have your parents behind you, you can't be a good leader." She also goes on to talk about within this that when the key to the 4-H program is a great partnership between volunteers, staff, and young people. And she said, "I see our volunteer leaders as the builders of tomorrow and the gold of our organization." So Sue and Pam, the work you're doing is investing in the future of your community. And that's how Geraldine saw it, as an investment. And she said that these kids are great kids. They like to camp out, sing songs, and they could be like a lot of suburban kids hanging out at the mall on Saturday afternoons, but instead they're walking here with a goat or llama. So she was able to connect with everyone that she came in contact with, but she also invested in some amazing people like yourselves. And Pam and Sue and Larry, you're doing that within the 4-H'ers right now. And Leah, you're doing that with the 4-H'ers in Champaign County. And I think that Geraldine would be very proud of all of you here, and remembering her, but also sharing the knowledge that she was able to pass down. Though knowing her, she would be very humble about it, because she was a very humble individual. But the number one thing I think we can all get out of this conversation and the stories that you've told is that we can be more like Geraldine in our communities by being more involved and looking around and seeing what needs to be done and how to do it. And the first stop is making sure that our young people are looked after and are equipped with the tools and the knowledge that they need to be successful leaders in the future. So that's something that I know that I've learned from all of you and the stories that you've told. But I know that she is greatly missed within the community and through those who do remember her. But I do want you all to know that she still lives on in everything that we do, especially those of you who are involved with 4-H, because that was a passion of hers. But with the Sangamon Experience and what we do, the reason why we wanted to highlight Geraldine was the fact that individuals like her need to be remembered in the history books, because they're individuals that make the biggest impact in their communities, and making sure that we remember the past, but we also are innovative, just like all 4-H'ers, and prepared for what the future has to bring, and helping to teach the next generation. And so it is a great honor for us here at the University of Illinois to recognize the great work that Geraldine and the guys and gals have done in Scott County. And it is our hope to continue telling the Geraldine story and showcasing that we can be community leaders through our actions every day, and the impact that we have on others that surround us by lending a helping hand or taking charge of a situation that allows us to better enrich those around us. So I want to thank all of you for joining me today on this very special program and highlighting the life and legacy of Geraldine Maguire. And I know I'll be looking at your Facebook page and seeing what new things that you are doing in Scott County. And I look forward to speaking with all of you later on, hopefully by attending another event that you put on in Scott County, considering that you guys are always busy. You're always doing something. And it's always exciting to see that. All right. Well, I'm going to close us out. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you to our guests for being here. I'm going to let our guests take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to introduce you guys to the next program that we're going to have next week for our Community Trailblazers program. So thank you so much for attending the program this evening. Our next event will be next week. We will be hosting it on the 30th. And there's been a little bit of a change with our last program. So the Community Trailblazers Women's History Month program that we offer here at the Sangamon Experience will be actually live at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, where we have a special graduate student by the name of Katie, who will actually be talking about Susan Lawrence Dana, a suffragette who lived here in the Sangamon County area, but she also was heavily involved in politics throughout the state of Illinois. And Katie's going to be talking to us quite a bit about her specific work with charitable organizations, and she'll be answering questions as well. Now, for those of you who will not be able to attend the event, it will be streamed later. So a recording of that program will be offered to our followers later on that particular week. So I want to encourage you to attend the event at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, and I hope you'll be able to learn more about our Community Trailblazers. But more importantly, I hope that you're able to learn from them, and we're able to be community leaders yourself within your own communities here in the Sangamon Valley area. So tune in next time where we speak about iconic women within our communities and ways that we can learn from them, and we're able to build the communities that we have today. So thank you again for joining us, and I'll see you next time here at the Sangamon Experience.